Tov Dalet. Finishing up here. He writes, let me see. We'll read the Pirush Hut. He has these introductions. The introductions usually they're just quoting really or summarizing what's about to be said. Let's see how this works. Belias Hamarach B'Chaminirmas Mituk Riros Hadinim. So that's what the Maror is about. Being in the Maror, which is gematria, is the word, also the same word as Malves, which is 446. So this is what Maror is talking about. Parts of Leah, but specifically, he says the very difficult dinim, which we've discussed before about the dinim in Leah, parts of Leah, so he says this is where they really grab a hold. The tachlon v'lo'asara b'shinayim, to really chew them, grind them up with your teeth, for the kaven shehu kedei l'matek amariros, in order to sweeten out the dinim. Haromezes al the dinim shebechem, which are in them, the cholokim dakim, and you cause everything to get grinded up. So this has that ability. Now, there has to be more to be said about this idea. Why choose Maror? Because the Shulchan Aruch says that because it's bitter at the end if you start eating it a little bit when you're looking at it more carefully. Let's see Shebechem Kenoida, and moving on. Drush Hamida, he says episode. B'shchokim that is the heavens, hatochanim and the tzaddikim the asidavod, they grind up man for the tzaddikim in the future world. The question is what is this about? He just don't know much about this. The preparation for bringing goodness or blessing into the tzaddikim. This goes through that process of birur. So this comes specifically only in this way, through grinding and chewing. So if you just swallow it, you're not yotze. You have to do all of that. Now, there must be more to this, and we'll see, but I don't know that we're going to see it here. Today, the mitak is as a mribos haromez al hadinim shabo. Here's a little note here in the first paragraph. He says, he writes, being in the remez the mituk hadinim. Charoset, Kosev, Rav, Zachab, Drush, Boss. We're about to see this. He said, Daki he says Hazivuk Hana'azabelecha Pepesach hu im Rachel is with Rachel, not with Leah. Bein Zivug in Leah klal b'lai lazeh. There is no yichud with Leah. V'im kol zecha be'anet tzaricha l'mahal is a denim shabbat. Now he doesn't go into what exactly this means, because if the yichud is with Leah, with Rachel, she must be all, where is Leah? So where is the yichud taking place? Even though the zivug is not with Leah, this takes place as a result of dipping this Maror into the Charoset. So he's Charoset, and I think he's going to get to this later on, or if we'll get to it. He says, the two words, Rus and Sach, are two different ideas on Khan, and there's more to be said about that. The Sham over there in his boyer called Pratech and B'mitov Hayedecha Be'elu Shemos Unaasa, and how this is made out of these names. That's later on in this section. So we're going to move over, go to the next place. Now we're on page Reish Tov Vav. It says that Charoset ba lamatek dinim shabaleya. So that's what Charoset does. I'm not getting the actual connection of what Leah has to do with this yet. He's Zecher the Tit, and it's a remembrance of Tit. What's Pshat and Tit? Zecher B'charomas, the Dinim, Dini Leah V'Rachel, which is to teach you about the Dinim for both of them. So Zecher V'Inyan, the Charoset, Shebacha B'Anamat Bilim as a Maror, who's Zecher the Tit. The Tit is really, they make it into, plaster. A plaster or cement. Shabo Nishan is Avdo Yisrael B'Mitzrayim. Shal Kain Sark Al Soso Abba, so therefore you have to make it thick. No comment on thick. V'hu B'Ikaros So Mitu Dini Leah, so in its root, it's the concept of the sweetening of the dinim in Leah. Al Yedera V'Tivol L'Maror Bar. How does this happen? By dipping the Maror into it. Because this is a repeat of what he said at the beginning. Now he doesn't, at this point, he doesn't offer a reason why this actually works, the dipping the Maror into Charoset, and what's Pshat in Charoset, which you have to make thick because it's a zeker to the tit in which we work. So how this works as a mitok, I don't know. Kain afal pisha ein hazivuk naasi imach b'lay lazeh v'hidach b'chayedach shehi zocher zecher l'tit. It's a remindment of this tit, of the clay, or the mortar that they use. Yesh b'cha remez gam the dini rachel milvad dini leah. So he says what? He says that since it has a tit, the tit is a relationship to both of them. So how does this work? He os yud, and he says that this is a mechanism. He says there's a yud in between two tesses. So he says he should os yud shebe'emsa shnei hatesim shebemilas tit ola the kan of the kan. It works on both sides because it could be t or it could be yit. Who's so milui via the halafim, and this is the secret because actually it is the same thing as the avaya the halafim. That is, if you're looking at just the milui, shehu levada rabbelit osis shem avaya pashut sheola yud test. That comes to gematria yud test. Now the question is that he wants to say the tit reminds is to remind us or whatever that you're sweetening both Leah and Rachel because this yud works both ways. Now there's obviously a secret in this yud, so exactly what it means I don't know. And then he shows you this is the milui itself, vav daled aleph aleph vav aleph. So that is gematria chava, which is the same gematria as 19. So what you're doing is taking the tit and you're making it into two 19s. Which he says refers to, well, what is it? It's the milui of Zeranpin, of Ma. So he said b'gematria of Abayisha Choise Eishes Adam and Rishon v'Romez Alchon the Kavod the Zeranpin, and it's really talking about Malchus. V'shtei pa'amem yat or yit or whatever you pronounce it, Yud Tes. Mishnei Shemos Avaya D'Halofim, that comes from these two names of Avaya D'Halofim, because if we're talking about the milui of the Avaya D'Halofim, it's the same gematria. Sheyesh B'Zer Anpin, Heim Shtech and the Kavod the Zer Anpin and Ekroim Leah V'Rachel. So he says that you have to look at these 38s, or these 19s, and they have to do with going all the way back to Chava, because Chava, the manifestation of Chava apparently is in her Yud Tes, in her gematria. Now the thing is that trying to understand is that what does the milui actually mean in relationship to the pashut? In other words, you have a pashut, then it spreads. So here you're dealing with just the spread. You're not dealing with the ikar, which is the Yud Kei Vav Kei. So what power does that have? That's the question I have. So obviously it's an extension in some way, going to I would say a lower level or a more outside level. Not sure. So I'm just noticing it. Anfin and Nikrayim Leah V'Rachel. So here we have these 19s. There's a pair of 19s here. So these two 19s refer to, again, the milui. I guess maybe it's the milui goes into the nukva. I'm not sure. Because they both have the same relationship. He has a relationship to both. Now there is some greater secret in there. I'm not sure what it is. And that was the end of that drush. In that drush, it seemed to be like a major part of the drush. Well, besides the last part that we saw, which I really don't understand how it is that the Maror, even though he said it, is sweetened by the Charoset. That may be a fact, because the Charoset a little bit is sweet. But exactly how that works, since it refers to the difficulties that we had in Mitzrayim. Now we're going to go to the next drush, which this drush has a lot of the things in it that the other drush has, but more. So he says, drush of Pesach, drush Vav. He says, now let's read the Pirush on the top corner. He says, drush Vav, Ucha drasha shishim in the drasha ma'oskim be'inyan chag Pesach, and the var b'bocha ba'orach seder mitzvos ha'ma'isius shenitzavina min the Torah o mit the Rabbanan o mit the Risofrim. I'm not sure what the difference is between I'm sure you know, between the Rabbanim and the Divrei Sofrim. At any rate, he says, as it's handed down to us, these are the mitzvahs ma'asos we do. L'chaim osach b'lecha b'Pesach. V'chavamatzos remember the mochen the mishachim l'zer anpin ma'abba. So let's go back, and then you have here the concept of the matzahs themselves. They come from mochin that come from to zer anpin from the Abba side. V'arba kosas, then when you come to the wine, charumez is the mochin and imshachim l'cha be'ima, and then you have also the concept of karpas. Aroma is the mochin the katnas rishon on imshachim l'cha be'nev, which is a reference to that, which comes to zer anpin from tevuna. V'gam od mitzvahs she'ein bechem remez the hamshachas mochim, and there's also mitzvahs that we don't have a tie to the hamshacha mochim. So let's going back to the Charoset, for example, remez is the mikud dini leah, which is a reference to that. So I'm missing the actual way that this does this for leah, but he says that's the fact. So the inside of that fact, I would like to know, but I haven't seen it yet. Which is Leah, the dinim and law of Leah are considered to be Maror. That's what Maror is. V'kol SHAAR and Pesach, then we get to all the rest of the Yanim of Pesach. So washing your hand 2 different times. Of a mitzvah's kriyas HAKAVANOT v'gam yizboyer yizboyer hal lachma anya the fichosod, so that all of that is there. There's a little arichos. There's a lot of arichos here to get us in a background in this, but we're going to keep going on at this stage. So he says, we're now on page Taf Yud. So he says, "Mochin the Abba b'nirmazim b'mitzvahs b'matzah." So the Abba part comes from the matzah itself. The Iba, "Mochin the Abba b'nirmazim b'matzah." V'mochin the Iba b'arba kosas. So one question is that we darshan the 4 is actually 3. We've seen that drush many times. 3 mochin become 4, but you only have 3 matzahs. So let's see how this goes. So you have 4 cups, and in other words, 4 cups and 3 matzahs. Hinech is boyer la'el, kibelech bepesach niknas beparts of zer anpin umemena nimshach gam the parts of a malchus shehi anukvo. Mochim the katnas. So these are mochim the katnas rishon, and also the godless rishon. Shehei mochim the neshama. What does this mean? Mochim the neshama, because they're mochim that coming out of tevuna. The parts of Abinda the Zer Anpin into the parts of the Abinda the Zer Anpin. So again, the rule that the place they're coming from has a likely docking port in the same level, which is the level of Bina. the Zer Anpin, Yisrael Sabatavuna, and then ultimately it's dealing with the ones, that is, Katnas one and Godless one, you're dealing with Yisrael Sabatavuna. Mochin Katnas Sheni v'Godless Sheni, Shehem Mochin the higher, which are level, they're a higher level of Mochin, more light, or more of the light of the Ein Sof, is a better way to say it. Shehem Mochin the higher, the Boyim, that come the parts of HaChochma, they come to the parts of called Chochma. Chochma, the Zer Anpin, Ayidech Abba v'Iber Eloyim, that come from a higher level, wrapping Eric Anpin, coming directly from Abba v'Iber Eloyim al Derek Mashin Shena'azel B'Lech Yitzias Mitzrayim, like the same way that it came through at the time of the night of actually going out, K'moshe Ne'emar and Yecheskel, V'tirbi, v'tagdali, v'tavogi, ba'ade adayim. So all these lashons of the language of growing there. V'tzarek shetedus, you have to know this. Ki afshe efshe the farish as a cast of rock al mochin the ima, so that we're part of that particular pasuk is really only referring to the mochin the ima, b'kol makom be'emes, yesh mochin the haydrat selam animshach l'zer anpin, Mitzad Abba Elor v'Yisrael Saba, but they're also mochin that are coming from a more panimi place. A mochin the hinder of Tzelem, so that is the mochin, the hinder that is the Tzelem, and Nimshach l'zer anpin. That part of the Tzelem that comes from Ima Elor v'Tavuna, and he brings them together because the ones go with Tavuna, and the godless two and Katnas two and godless two come from Imei law. But because b'bechina b'chem yesh kol bedregos shel Katnas v'godless and Niskarim. He said b'kibitzad Abba b'kolel. So let's just talk about the Abba side. Yesh b'chinas Katnas v'godless rishon b'bechinas Yisrael sabatavuna. Ub'tevis Bechinas Katnas v'Gadol Sheni, Bechinas Chochma Law. Just saying it out again. Became Mitzad Ima, you have the same thing with Akolelas. Yesh Bechinas Katnas v'Gadol Rishon, Bechinas Tavuna, Bechinas Katnas v'Gadol Sheni, Bechinas Bina Law. Now he says the no like this. He says no like Ki Amochin the Mitzad Abba. Hanimshachin the Zer Anpin Mislavshim Techida Benai the Ima the Benai the Abba. They're originally clothed in the Nai. The Mochim are inside of the Nai the Abba. The Mochim Hem Mislavshim Tocha Mochim the Mitzad Ima. And then he said, what's the word? Tequila. V'Imochim, along with them, they're clothed inside of the Nai of Ima. So he said, as we know, they're clothed by the Nai of Ima. V'nimshachim yachad the Zer Anpin, and they go together into Zer Anpin. V'achar kach neknasim hanai the Iba b'shecha b'socham. Hanai the Abba, which has the Hanai the Abba, it's like a double set of mochim, one inside the other. Toch Zer Anpin al kein muchrach sha'af b'leil Pesach milvad hamochim. So besides the mochim, the Ima nimshachim b'mochim gam mochim the Abba. Now he went through a long way to tell us something that we probably knew. Let's see where else he goes. V'hidech of Ab bezucha halaydok and nisasim yachad al shekol echad v'chem nirmaz b'mitzvah cheres. But they're going in together. It's interesting what he's saying. He said they're going in together, but on the other hand, they have two different things they perform. Ki bechinas amochin the Abba near matzah beso. The matzah is really talking about matzah itself. Ki yesh shlosha matzos, because there are three matzahs, connected shlosha mochim, and there's three mochim. For chatam shamatzvos remembers the chochmahu. So why does it matzah have any relationship to Abba or to that area? Who besod halechem shehu b'chochma. It's the concept of lechem. A lechem is 3 times 26. I'm not sure what that means here. Kamoshi is bar l'kaman b'chem shechad Drush. We'll talk about it. Now he says these things are coming in at the same time. He said, but they're two different actions, sets of actions altogether. The Visha Shloshes Amochim Pratim Arba, so the 3, which could be broken down into 4. So this actually, it has 2 different parts to it. Chasanta the das b'yamin, the gevurah the das small. V'atam shechoya romes the bina, and how is this a reference to bina? Ki kol yayin amasameach hu be'ima yulor. That is al yodach, that is the highest possible level of the female side. Hamalvishin the erik anpin, which covers over erik anpin mitzad smolo chagorim adachaza, and it's just explaining the anatomy of this. As of a lukamon yizbar shel mivad hayayin gam hakos romas the ima. So this is also a reference to ima. So we're going to stop here, just getting a little background on the 6th drush, and we'll get to it more tomorrow.